The SEALs held their breath for orders. Then an A-10 Thunderbolt ripped through without clearance. The sun hadn't risen yet over the mountains of eastern Afghanistan, but Staff Sergeant Marcus Rodriguez could already feel sweat beading on his forehead beneath his night vision goggles. The SEAL team had been lying motionless in the rocky terrain for nearly 4 hours, watching a compound nestled in the valley below. Intelligence reports suggested this was where Ahmed Nazir, a high-value target responsible for coordinating attacks against coalition forces, was hiding. Rodriguez adjusted his position slightly, feeling the sharp stones dig into his chest through his tactical vest. To his left, Petty Officer First Class Jake Thompson remained as still as a statue, his sniper rifle trained on the main entrance of the compound. Thompson had earned his reputation as one of the most accurate marksmen in naval special warfare, and Rodriguez was glad to have him on overwatch. The mission briefing had been straightforward enough. Their 8-man team was tasked with surveillance and potential capture of Nazir if the opportunity presented itself. Air support was on standby, but any engagement would require explicit authorization from the Joint Operations Center. The rules of engagement were crystal clear: observe, report, and wait for orders. Chief Petty Officer David Chen, their team leader, spoke quietly into his radio, updating headquarters on their position. Chen had been leading SEAL operations for over a decade, and his calm demeanor under pressure had saved countless lives. The team trusted him implicitly, knowing that every decision he made was calculated and precise. As dawn approached, the compound began showing signs of life. Rodriguez watched through his binoculars as several men emerged from the main building, their movements casual and unhurried. One figure caught his attention, a tall man with a distinctive limp, matching the description of their target. Rodriguez felt his pulse quicken as he whispered into his throat mic, "Possible jackpot, main building, northeast corner." Thompson's voice crackled softly in their earpieces. "I have eyes on. Can't confirm identity from this angle, but the limp matches intelligence reports." The sniper adjusted his scope slightly, maintaining his focus on the compound's entrance. The team had positioned themselves on a ridge approximately 800 meters from the target location, providing an excellent vantage point while remaining concealed among the rocky outcroppings. Petty Officer Second Class Maria Santos, their communications specialist, monitored multiple radio frequencies, coordinating with air assets circling high above the valley. Hours passed as they observed the compound's daily routine. Women and children moved about the courtyard, tending to livestock and hanging laundry. The presence of civilians complicated any potential action, requiring careful consideration of collateral damage. Rodriguez counted at least 6 fighting-age males, all armed with AK-47 rifles, patrolling the perimeter in loose formations. Chief Chen received intermittent updates from headquarters, but no authorization for direct action. The waiting was perhaps the most challenging aspect of special operations, maintaining alertness and readiness while remaining completely motionless for extended periods. Rodriguez had learned early in his career that patience was as crucial a weapon as any rifle or explosive. As the afternoon wore on, the situation began to change. Santos intercepted radio chatter indicating that Nazir was planning to leave the compound before nightfall. If he escaped their surveillance, it could be weeks or months before they had another opportunity to locate him. The intelligence value of this operation was too significant to let slip away. Thompson reported increased activity around the compound's vehicle bay, where several pickup trucks were being prepared for travel. "Looks like they're getting ready to move," he whispered. "Multiple vehicles being loaded with supplies and personnel." Chief Chen faced a critical decision. Standard protocol required waiting for explicit authorization before taking any action, but the tactical situation was evolving rapidly. He could request immediate support, but radio communications with higher headquarters had been intermittent due to the mountainous terrain. The sound of diesel engines echoing across the valley indicated that departure was imminent. Rodriguez watched as armed men loaded into the trucks, their weapons visible and ready. The tall figure with the limp was nowhere to be seen, likely still inside the main building. Suddenly, Santos's radio crackled with urgent traffic. "Multiple aircraft inbound to our sector," she reported quietly. "Not showing on our coordination frequencies." This was unexpected. All air assets supporting their mission were supposed to be coordinated through their communications channel. The distinctive sound of jet engines grew louder, but it wasn't the familiar whine of fighter aircraft. Instead, the deep, guttural roar of turbofan engines suggested a different type of aircraft entirely. Rodriguez had heard that sound before during close air support missions. An A-10 Thunderbolt II, the Air Force's dedicated ground attack aircraft. Chief Chen immediately tried to establish contact with the incoming aircraft, but received no response. This was highly irregular, as all aircraft operating in their area of operations were required to coordinate with ground forces to prevent fratricidal incidents. The A-10's engines grew progressively louder as it approached the valley. Rodriguez could see Thompson tensing behind his rifle scope, uncertain about the aircraft's intentions. Without proper coordination, there was no way to know if the pilot was aware of their presence or the specific nature of their mission. The compound's occupants also heard the approaching aircraft. Armed men began running to defensive positions, while others hurried to move the vehicles under cover. The element of surprise that the SEAL team had carefully maintained for hours was rapidly disappearing. Chief Chen's voice was urgent but controlled as he continued attempting to contact the A-10 pilot. Any station, this is ground call sign Trident, requesting immediate contact with aircraft approaching grid 41 R&Q 7842. The radio remained silent except for static. Rodriguez felt the familiar pre-combat tension building in his muscles. Years of training had taught him to recognize when a situation was about to spiral beyond anyone's control. The carefully planned surveillance mission was transforming into something entirely different, and they were powerless to stop it. The sound of the A-10's engines reached a crescendo as the aircraft passed directly overhead at low altitude. Through his binoculars, Rodriguez could see the pilot clearly, close enough to wave if circumstances had been different. The aircraft's distinctive twin-engine configuration and straight wings were unmistakable against the morning sky. As the Thunderbolt disappeared over the next ridge, Chief Chen finally received a response on his radio. But it wasn't from the A-10 pilot. Instead, headquarters was demanding an immediate situation report, having detected unauthorized aircraft activity in their operational area. The mission that had begun as a routine surveillance operation was about to become something none of them had anticipated. The SEALs held their breath for orders. Then an A-10 Thunderbolt ripped through without clearance. Chief Chen's radio exploded with competing voices as multiple headquarters elements demanded information about the unauthorized aircraft. Rodriguez could hear the tension in his team leader's voice as he tried to manage communications while maintaining operational security. The A-10 had completed its initial pass and was now turning for another approach, its engines creating an ominous rumble that echoed off the valley walls. Trident, this is Falcon Base. Confirm your status and any contact with unidentified aircraft, came the urgent transmission from their Joint Operations Center. Chen responded quickly. Falcon Base, Trident. No contact established with aircraft. Continuing surveillance of target compound. Request clarification on air coordination. The response was immediate and alarming. Trident, be advised that aircraft is not, repeat not, coordinated through our channels, treating as potentially hostile. Recommend immediate extraction if compromised. Rodriguez felt his stomach drop. An uncoordinated military aircraft in their operational area could mean several things, none of them good. It might be a pilot who had deviated from his assigned mission, equipment malfunction preventing proper communication, or worst-case scenario, an aircraft that had been compromised by enemy forces. Thompson's voice cut through the radio chatter with professional calm. Aircraft inbound again, same heading, descending to attack altitude. The sniper had remained focused on his primary responsibility despite the chaos developing around them. Through his binoculars, Rodriguez watched the compound's defenders scramble to establish firing positions. Several men had mounted a heavy machine gun on the roof of the main building, while others took cover behind vehicles and walls. The presence of women and children in the courtyard complicated any potential engagement significantly. The A-10 pilot seemed oblivious to the ground situation as he lined up for what appeared to be a strafing run. Rodriguez knew the devastating firepower of the aircraft's 30 GAU-8 cannon. Designed to destroy tanks and armored vehicles, it would obliterate anything in the compound without discrimination. Chief Chen made a split-second decision that would define his career. Breaking radio protocol, he switched to the emergency frequency and transmitted in the clear. Any aircraft, this is ground forces at grid 41 RNQ 7842. Danger close, danger close. Civilians in target area. Abort attack, abort attack. The transmission violated operational security by revealing their position and mission, but Chen prioritized preventing civilian casualties over maintaining covert status. Rodriguez admired his team leader's moral courage, knowing the decision could have serious professional consequences. For several tense seconds, the A-10 continued its approach without any indication the pilot had received Chen's warning. The aircraft's nose was pointed directly at the compound, and Rodriguez could see the deadly cannon beneath the cockpit. Time seemed to slow as he watched the scene unfold through his binoculars. Suddenly, the A-10's nose lifted sharply as the pilot pulled out of his attack dive. The aircraft climbed steeply, engines straining against the abrupt change in flight path. Rodriguez released a breath he hadn't realized he was holding, grateful that someone had prevented what could have been a catastrophic mistake. Chen's radio crackled with an unfamiliar voice. Ground call sign Trident, this is Hog 27. Sorry for the confusion. Lost comms about 30 minutes ago and was operating on outdated targeting information. Thanks for the heads up. The relief in Chen's voice was evident as he responded. Hog 27, Trident. Glad we could help. Be advised we have friendly forces in the area conducting surveillance operations. Recommend you coordinate with Falcon Base before any further action. Rodriguez watched as the compound's defenders slowly emerged from their defensive positions, clearly confused by the aircraft's sudden departure. The tall figure with the limp appeared briefly in the courtyard before disappearing back into the main building. The opportunity for easy identification was lost, but at least civilian lives had been preserved. Santos monitored multiple radio frequencies as various headquarters elements tried to understand what had happened. The A-10 pilot, call sign Hog 27, was now in communication with air traffic control and being vectored to a holding pattern while the situation was sorted out. Thompson maintained his overwatch position, but the compound's increased security posture made continued surveillance much more challenging. Armed guards now patrolled actively rather than casually, and several had taken positions that provided clear fields of fire toward the ridge where the SEAL team was hidden. The unauthorized aircraft incident had transformed their covert surveillance mission into a potential combat situation. Rodriguez checked his equipment and ammunition, ensuring everything was ready if the situation deteriorated further. Years of training had taught him that missions rarely went according to plan, requiring constant adaptation to changing circumstances. Chief Chen received new orders from headquarters within the hour. The compromise of their position by the A-10 incident meant they could no longer conduct effective surveillance from their current location. However, with Nazir potentially preparing to leave the compound, abandoning the mission entirely was not an acceptable option. Trident, this is Falcon Base. You are authorized to relocate to alternate surveillance position Alpha 7. Maintain eyes on target and report any movement. Air support is being repositioned to provide coverage if needed. The team began preparing to move, carefully packing their equipment while maintaining security. Rodriguez knew that relocating during daylight hours increased their risk of detection significantly, but staying in a compromised position was equally dangerous. Thompson packed his sniper rifle with the methodical precision that had made him legendary among his peers. Every movement was calculated to minimize noise and visual signature. The team had trained together for months, developing the seamless coordination necessary for special operations. As they prepared to bound to their new position, Santos reported increased radio traffic from the compound. Multiple transmissions in local language, she whispered. Sounds like they're discussing the aircraft incident and whether to relocate. This intelligence was crucial. If Nazir's people decided to move immediately, the SEAL team might lose their target entirely. Conversely, if they remained in the compound but increased security measures, any future action would become significantly more difficult. Rodriguez felt the familiar weight of his equipment as he prepared to move. The team would bound by pairs, with Thompson and another operator providing overwatch while the others moved to the alternate position. It was a standard tactical movement, but the presence of alert enemies made every step potentially dangerous. Chief Chen gave the signal, and the first pair began their movement down the rocky slope. Rodriguez watched their progress through his rifle scope, ready to provide covering fire if needed. The afternoon sun created harsh shadows that would help conceal their movement, but also made observation more challenging. The sound of diesel engines from the compound indicated that vehicles were indeed being prepared for departure. Time was running out to complete their mission successfully, and the unauthorized A-10 incident had complicated everything. Rodriguez wondered if they would get another opportunity to locate Nazir, or if this mission would end in frustration like so many others. As his turn came to move, Rodriguez took a deep breath and began carefully picking his way down the slope toward their new position. The mission was far from over, and he knew the most dangerous moments were often still ahead. The SEALs held their breath for orders. Then an A-10 Thunderbolt ripped through without clearance. The alternate surveillance position offered a completely different perspective on the compound, forcing Rodriguez to mentally readjust his understanding of the target area. From their new vantage point on the southern ridge, he could see sections of the building that had been hidden during their initial observation. More importantly, he noticed what appeared to be a tunnel entrance partially concealed behind stacked firewood. Thompson quickly established his new firing position, adjusting his rifle's scope to account for the changed distance and angle. The sniper's ability to rapidly adapt to new shooting positions was one of the skills that separated elite operators from conventional forces. Within minutes, he had calculated new range cards and identified potential engagement zones. "New position established," Thompson reported quietly. "Good visibility on the main compound, but we've lost some coverage on the eastern approaches." This tactical reality meant the team would have to rely more heavily on Santos's electronic surveillance to monitor activity they couldn't observe directly. Chief Chen coordinated with Falcon Base to update their position and request any additional intelligence about the compound's layout. The tunnel entrance Rodriguez had spotted wasn't marked on their original target folder, suggesting either outdated intelligence or recent construction. Santos intercepted a concerning radio transmission from the compound. "Boss, they're talking about moving the package tonight instead of this afternoon," she whispered, using the team's code word for their target. "Sounds like the aircraft incident spooked them into changing their timeline." This development created new challenges for the mission. Night operations favored the SEAL team's capabilities, but it also meant potentially losing visual contact with Nazir if he used the tunnel system to move between buildings. Rodriguez adjusted his night vision equipment, ensuring it was ready for extended use. The afternoon passed slowly as they observed the compound's preparations for departure. Several vehicles were loaded with supplies and personnel, but the tall figure with the limp remained elusive. Rodriguez began to wonder if their target had already left through the tunnel system, making their surveillance efforts meaningless. Thompson reported movement near the tunnel entrance. "Two individuals just entered through the concealed opening," he whispered. "Can't identify from this distance, but one appeared to be carrying communication equipment." This intelligence suggested the tunnel system was actively being used, possibly as a command center or escape route. Chief Chen requested permission to investigate the tunnel entrance, but headquarters denied the request due to insufficient intelligence about the underground layout and potential booby traps. As evening approached, Rodriguez noticed increased activity around the compound's perimeter. Armed guards had established checkpoint positions on all access roads, and several men were conducting systematic searches of the surrounding area. The heightened security measures indicated that Nazir's people were taking no chances after the morning's aircraft incident. Santos picked up radio chatter, suggesting that the compound's occupants were expecting additional personnel to arrive before the planned departure. This could mean reinforcements, transportation assets, or possibly other high-value targets. The intelligence value of the operation was potentially increasing even as the tactical situation became more complex. Thompson identified what appeared to be a new sniper position on the compound's highest roof. "Enemy marksman establishing overwatch position," he reported. "Good fields of fire covering our current location and likely approach routes." This development significantly changed the tactical equation. The presence of an enemy sniper meant that any movement by the SEAL team would be extremely dangerous, and any potential assault would require neutralizing the threat before other operations could proceed. Chief Chen faced another difficult decision. The team could request immediate air support to eliminate the enemy sniper, but this would certainly compromise their mission and alert all occupants of the compound to their presence. Alternatively, they could attempt to neutralize the threat quietly, but this would require getting much closer to the target area. Rodriguez watched as the enemy sniper adjusted his position, clearly scanning the ridgeline where they were concealed. The man appeared to be using professional techniques, suggesting formal military training rather than amateur enthusiasm. This made him a much more dangerous opponent. The sun began setting behind the mountains, casting long shadows across the valley. Night operations would begin soon, bringing both opportunities and additional risks. Rodriguez checked his equipment one final time, ensuring that all gear was secured and ready for potential movement. Santos received an urgent transmission from headquarters. "Trident, this is Falcon Base. Signal intelligence indicates multiple additional vehicles approaching your target area from the north. Estimated arrival time 30 minutes. Be advised higher headquarters is considering immediate action to prevent target dispersal." This information changed everything. If multiple vehicles were bringing reinforcements or additional high-value targets to the compound, the mission's priority level would increase dramatically. Rodriguez could feel the tension building as Chief Chen coordinated with various headquarters elements to understand the developing situation. Thompson maintained his focus on the enemy sniper while monitoring the compound's activities. "Multiple individuals now visible on the main building's roof," he reported. "Looks like they're installing additional defensive positions." The tactical situation was rapidly becoming more complex than their 8-man team could handle effectively. Rodriguez wondered if they were about to become observers to a much larger operation, or if they would be called upon to take direct action despite the overwhelming odds. Chief Chen's radio crackled with new orders. "Trident, you are directed to maintain surveillance and provide targeting information for possible airstrikes. Do not, repeat do not, initiate ground action without explicit authorization. Additional assets are being positioned to support potential operations." Rodriguez felt both relief and frustration. Relief that they wouldn't be expected to assault a heavily defended compound with superior numbers, but frustration that their role was being reduced to passive observation. He knew that special operations forces were most effective when they could use initiative and tactical flexibility. The first of the approaching vehicles appeared on the northern road, headlights visible in the growing darkness. Santos counted at least 4 trucks, each carrying multiple armed personnel. The compound was being reinforced significantly, making any future action much more complicated. Thompson adjusted his night vision scope as the last daylight faded from the valley. "Multiple personnel dismounting from the vehicles," he reported. "Looks like they brought heavy weapons and additional communication equipment." As darkness settled over the mountains, Rodriguez realized their surveillance mission was evolving into something much larger. The question was whether they would remain hidden observers or become active participants in whatever was about to unfold in the valley below. The SEALs held their breath for orders. Then an A-10 Thunderbolt ripped through without clearance. The infrared signatures visible through Rodriguez's night vision equipment painted an ominous picture of the compound below. At least 20 armed personnel now occupied defensive positions, far more than their original intelligence had suggested. The reinforcements had brought sophisticated equipment, including what appeared to be shoulder-fired surface-to-air missiles and heavy machine guns mounted on the newly arrived trucks. Thompson's voice carried a note of professional concern as he updated his count. "Multiple crew-served weapons now emplaced around the perimeter. They've got overlapping fields of fire covering all approaches. This is looking more like a military installation than a terrorist hideout." The transformation of the compound was remarkable. Within hours, it had evolved from a loosely guarded safe house into a formidable defensive position. Rodriguez wondered if their target had been expecting trouble, or if the morning's A-10 incident had triggered pre-planned security measures. Chief Chen received a priority transmission from Falcon Base that changed the entire mission profile. "Trident, this is Falcon Base. Signal intelligence confirms presence of multiple high-value targets at your location. Authorization granted for immediate action to prevent escape. Air support inbound your position in 15 minutes. Rodriguez felt his pulse quicken as the mission shifted from surveillance to combat operations. 15 minutes wasn't much time to plan and coordinate an assault on a heavily defended position, especially with close air support arriving simultaneously. The margin for error was essentially zero. Santos monitored multiple radio frequencies as various aircraft checked in with air traffic control. "Multiple fast movers inbound," she reported quietly. "Sounds like more than just the A-10 from this morning." The presence of additional aircraft suggested this operation had been elevated to the highest priority levels. Thompson began identifying priority targets for the upcoming assault. Enemy sniper position marked, 2 heavy machine gun positions on the main building, additional crew-served weapons on the perimeter vehicles. Each target would need to be neutralized quickly to prevent effective resistance. The tactical challenge was enormous. 8 SEALs against 20-plus defenders in prepared positions, even with air support, would require perfect execution and considerable luck. Rodriguez checked his ammunition count and verified his equipment configuration, knowing that every round might be critical. Chief Chen outlined their assault plan in whispered words that carried across their tactical radio network. Thompson maintains overwatch and takes the sniper on initial contact. Rodriguez and Martinez bound forward to establish base of fire. Santos coordinates air support. Johnson and Williams breach the main entrance after air prep. Peterson and I clear the tunnel system. The plan was aggressive and dangerous, but it maximized their advantages in night operations and close-quarters combat while minimizing exposure to the enemy's superior numbers and heavy weapons. Rodriguez appreciated Chen's tactical thinking, even as he recognized the enormous risks involved. The sound of approaching aircraft gradually became audible, multiple jet engines at different altitudes and distances. Rodriguez could identify the distinctive roar of F-16 Fighting Falcons mixed with the deeper rumble of an A-10 Thunderbolt. The Air Force was bringing significant firepower to support their ground assault. Santos established contact with the inbound aircraft, coordinating target identification and attack sequences. "Hog 27, this is Trident. Multiple targets marked for immediate engagement. Be advised friendly forces danger close. Grid 41 RNQ 7842. The familiar voice of the A-10 pilot from the morning's incident responded immediately. "Trident, Hog 27. Good to work with you again. Have multiple targets identified. Ready for immediate engagement on your command." Rodriguez found it oddly comforting that the same pilot who had nearly compromised their mission that morning would now be providing crucial fire support. The irony wasn't lost on him that the unauthorized aircraft incident had led directly to this moment. Thompson's scope was trained on the enemy sniper position as he waited for the signal to initiate contact. "Target acquired and marked," he whispered. "Ready to engage on your command." Years of training had prepared him for this exact scenario, where a single well-placed shot would determine the success or failure of the entire operation. The compound's defenders seemed unaware of the approaching aircraft or the SEAL team's presence. Guards continued their routine patrols, and Rodriguez could see several individuals moving casually between buildings. The element of surprise remained intact, providing a crucial advantage for the upcoming assault. Chief Chen coordinated the final details with air support while positioning his team for the assault. "Hog 27, Trident. Initiate attack run in 60 seconds. Priority targets are crew-served weapons positions and personnel concentrations. Avoid the main building until we can confirm civilian status." Rodriguez appreciated his team leader's continued concern for potential civilian casualties, even in the midst of planning a high-risk combat operation. The SEAL ethos emphasized protecting innocent life whenever possible, regardless of tactical convenience. The F-16s arrived first, their engines screaming as they dove toward the compound at high speed. Rodriguez watched through his night vision as the lead aircraft released precision-guided munitions toward the perimeter defensive positions. The explosions illuminated the valley briefly, revealing the full extent of the compound's fortifications. Simultaneously, Thompson's rifle cracked once, the sound barely audible over the aircraft engines. "Enemy sniper neutralized," he reported calmly, already shifting his aim towards secondary targets. The A-10 followed immediately behind the F-16s, its GAU-8 cannon erupting in a devastating display of firepower. The 30 rounds shredded the truck-mounted weapons positions, eliminating the heaviest threats to the ground assault team. Rodriguez could see secondary explosions as ammunition and fuel ignited from the cannon strikes. Chief Chen's voice cut through the chaos with calm authority. Execute, execute, execute. All teams advance as planned. Rodriguez rose from his concealed position and began bounding forward toward the compound, using the aircraft attacks as cover for his movement. The tactical situation had transformed completely within seconds. The compound's organized defense collapsed under the precision airstrikes, with surviving defenders scrambling for cover rather than maintaining coordinated resistance. Rodriguez could see the psychological impact of the sudden, overwhelming firepower on the remaining enemy personnel. Santos coordinated with the aircraft to shift fires away from the main building as the ground assault team closed distance. Hog 27, shift fires to the eastern compound, ground teams advancing on the main objective. Her calm professionalism under fire exemplified the training and character that defined naval special warfare. As Rodriguez reached his assigned position, he could see the compound's entrance clearly through his rifle scope. The heavy wooden door had been splintered by shrapnel from the airstrikes, and smoke was beginning to emerge from several buildings. The assault was proceeding according to plan, but the most dangerous phase was just beginning. The next few minutes would determine whether their mission succeeded or failed, and whether all team members would survive the night. Rodriguez took a deep breath and prepared to advance toward the main building, knowing that everything they had trained for was about to be tested under the most demanding circumstances possible. The SEALs held their breath for orders, then an A-10 Thunderbolt ripped through without clearance. Rodriguez sprinted across the open ground toward the compound's main entrance, his rifle ready as he scanned for threats through his night vision goggles. The airstrikes had created a chaos of smoke, dust, and debris that provided concealment but also limited visibility for both sides. Behind him, Martinez followed in a perfect tactical bound, ready to provide covering fire if needed. The compound's main door hung askew on damaged hinges, providing a narrow opening into the building's interior. Rodriguez could hear voices inside, some shouting in panic, others attempting to coordinate a defense. The linguistic pattern suggested a mix of local fighters and foreign advisors, confirming intelligence reports about international terrorist cooperation. Thompson's voice crackled through their radio network as he maintained overwatch from the ridge. Multiple personnel fleeing through the tunnel entrance. Looks like they're evacuating high-value individuals through the underground route. This was exactly what the team had hoped to prevent, but the tunnel system's hidden entrance made interdiction nearly impossible from their current position. Rodriguez reached the damaged entrance and signaled for Martinez to cover the courtyard while he cleared the doorway. Years of close-quarters battle training had ingrained specific techniques for entering contested buildings, emphasizing speed, violence of action, and coordinated movement to overwhelm defenders. The interior of the building was dimly lit by battery-powered lanterns, creating harsh shadows that made target identification challenging. Rodriguez could see several rooms branching off from a central corridor, with stairs leading to an upper level where they had observed enemy activity during their surveillance. Chief Chen's voice provided critical updates as he and Peterson advanced toward the tunnel entrance. Tunnel mouth is defended by at least 3 personnel with automatic weapons. We need suppression fire to effect entry. The underground route was proving to be as significant a tactical challenge as anticipated. Santos coordinated with the circling aircraft to provide precision fire support near the tunnel entrance. Hog 27, requesting 30 strafe approximately 50 meters east of main building. Friendlies are marked with infrared strobes. The coordination between ground and air forces required split-second timing to avoid fratricidal incidents. Rodriguez entered the building with Martinez close behind, their movement smooth and coordinated despite the chaotic environment. The first room appeared to be a communications center, with sophisticated radio equipment and multiple computer systems still operational. Documents and maps scattered across tables provided immediate intelligence value. A burst of automatic weapons fire erupted from the upper level, forcing Rodriguez and Martinez to take cover behind overturned furniture. The enemy fighters were attempting to establish a defensive position at the top of the stairs, using their elevation advantage to control access to the upper floors. Thompson's rifle cracked twice in rapid succession, the precise shots eliminating the stairway defenders through windows facing his position. "Upper-level threats neutralized," he reported calmly. "You're clear to advance to the second floor." The tactical advantage of having an expert marksman in Overwatch became evident as Rodriguez and Martinez bounded up the stairs without resistance. Thompson's ability to engage targets through windows and openings provided crucial fire support that would have been impossible from ground level. Chief Chen and Peterson successfully breached the tunnel entrance after the A-10's precision fire suppressed the defenders. "We're in the tunnel system," Chen reported, following recent tracks toward what appears to be an exit approximately 200 meters north of the main compound. This intelligence confirmed Rodriguez's suspicions that high-value targets were escaping through a sophisticated underground network. The tunnel system had probably been constructed specifically to provide escape routes in case of assault, demonstrating considerable pre-planning by the compound's occupants. The upper level of the main building contained several bedrooms and what appeared to be a planning room with detailed maps of the local area. Rodriguez noticed that several locations were marked with colored pins, possibly indicating safe houses or weapons caches. The intelligence value of these materials could be enormous for future operations. Martinez discovered a partially destroyed hard drive in one of the bedrooms, along with burned documents in multiple languages. The presence of technical equipment suggested this room had been used by someone with significant responsibilities within the terrorist organization. Santos intercepted radio transmissions indicating that surviving compound defenders were attempting to establish a rally point approximately 1 kilometer to the east. "Multiple personnel regrouping with heavy weapons," she reported. "They're discussing counterattack options against our position." This development meant the SEAL team couldn't remain in the compound indefinitely. Once the surviving defenders organized an effective counterattack, the tactical situation would become extremely dangerous for the small assault force. Thompson reported movement near the compound's eastern perimeter. "Multiple individuals with weapons moving toward the main building from concealed positions. Looks like they're trying to flank our entry point." The enemy's local knowledge was allowing them to use terrain features invisible to the assault team. Rodriguez and Martinez quickly collected documents and computer equipment from the upper level before preparing to withdraw. The intelligence materials could provide crucial information about terrorist networks and planned attacks, making their recovery a primary mission objective. Chief Chen's voice carried urgency as he updated the team from the tunnel system. "We've got our primary target. Nazir was attempting to escape through the tunnel, but was trapped when Peterson collapsed the exit with explosives. He's wounded but alive and ready for extraction." The successful capture of their high-value target transformed the mission from potential failure to significant success. Rodriguez felt a surge of professional satisfaction, knowing that months of intelligence work and planning had resulted in removing a major threat to coalition forces. Santos coordinated with headquarters to arrange immediate extraction, knowing that the team's position would become increasingly dangerous as enemy forces organized their response. "Falcon Base, Trident, primary objective secured. Request immediate extraction from Landing Zone Alpha." The distinctive sound of helicopter rotors became audible in the distance as extraction aircraft approached their position. Rodriguez knew that the most dangerous phase of any mission was often the extraction, when enemy forces had time to position themselves along known escape routes. Thompson maintained his overwatch position as the rest of the team converged on the main building for extraction. "Multiple vehicles approaching from the east," he reported. "Looks like that counterattack is developing faster than expected." The tactical situation was becoming a race between the arriving extraction helicopters and the organizing enemy counterattack. Rodriguez prepared to bound toward the designated landing zone, knowing that the next few minutes would determine whether their successful mission ended in triumph or tragedy. As he moved toward the extraction point with captured documents and equipment, Rodriguez reflected on how the unauthorized A-10 incident that morning had ultimately led to the mission's success. Sometimes, the most unexpected events created opportunities that careful planning could never anticipate. The SEALs held their breath for orders. Then an A-10 Thunderbolt ripped through without clearance. The extraction helicopters appeared as dark silhouettes against the star-filled sky, their rotor noise echoing off the valley walls as they approached the designated landing zone. Rodriguez could see the lead aircraft's door gunner scanning the terrain below through night vision equipment, ready to provide suppressive fire if needed during the pickup. Chief Chen emerged from the tunnel entrance with Peterson and their captured high-value target, Ahmed Nazir, whose hands were secured with zip-tie restraints. Despite his wounded leg, Nazir maintained the defiant expression of someone who believed his capture was only temporary. Rodriguez knew that extracting a live prisoner significantly complicated their tactical situation. Thompson's voice carried increasing urgency as he observed the approaching enemy forces. Multiple vehicles with mounted weapons converging on the compound from 3 directions. Estimated arrival time 4 minutes. They're moving fast and appear well coordinated. The timing was critical. The extraction helicopters needed approximately 3 minutes to land, load the team and prisoner, and depart safely. Enemy forces would arrive before the helicopters could clear the area, creating a dangerous window where the aircraft would be vulnerable to ground fire. Santos coordinated with the helicopter pilots while monitoring enemy radio communications. "Extraction birds, this is Trident. Landing zone is hot with enemy forces inbound. Request immediate suppression of approaching vehicles." The pilots acknowledged and began coordinating with the circling A-10 for fire support during the extraction. Rodriguez bounded toward the landing zone with Martinez, carrying captured intelligence materials and computer equipment. The weight of the additional gear slowed their movement, but the intelligence value justified the tactical risk. These materials might prevent future terrorist attacks or reveal the locations of other high-value targets. The lead helicopter touched down in a swirl of dust and debris, its crew chief immediately establishing security while the pilot maintained engine power for rapid departure. Rodriguez could see the aircraft's defensive systems active, ready to counter incoming rocket-propelled grenades or small arms fire. Hog 27's familiar voice crackled over the radio as the A-10 pilot prepared to engage the approaching enemy vehicles. "Trident, I have multiple targets in sight. Beginning attack run on the eastern approach route." The same pilot who had nearly compromised their mission that morning was now providing crucial fire support for their extraction. Thompson began his movement from the overwatch position, but enemy fire forced him to take cover behind rocky outcroppings. "Taking accurate fire from multiple positions," he reported calmly. "They've got me pinned down about 200 meters from the landing zone." This development created an impossible choice for Chief Chen. The helicopters couldn't wait indefinitely while under fire, but abandoning Thompson was unthinkable. The SEAL ethos of never leaving teammates behind wasn't just training doctrine. It was a sacred commitment that defined their brotherhood. Rodriguez made an instantaneous decision that reflected years of combat experience. "I'm going back for Thompson," he transmitted, already turning away from the helicopter despite Martinez's shouted protests. Some decisions transcended tactical calculations and entered the realm of moral obligation. The A-10's GAU-8 cannon erupted in a devastating display of firepower, shredding the lead enemy vehicles and forcing the others to disperse for cover. The 30 rounds created spectacular secondary explosions as fuel tanks and ammunition ignited, temporarily disrupting the enemy's coordinated advance. Rodriguez sprinted toward Thompson's position while enemy fire kicked up dirt around his feet. His night vision equipment allowed him to identify firing positions and adjust his route to minimize exposure, but the volume of incoming rounds made any movement extremely dangerous. Chief Chen coordinated the extraction sequence while maintaining security around the helicopters. "Nazir and captured materials loaded," he reported to Santos. "Standing by for Thompson and Rodriguez." The prisoner sat silently in the helicopter's cargo area, his eyes carefully observing everything around him. Thompson's position was untenable, with enemy fighters advancing from multiple directions while maintaining suppressive fire. Rodriguez reached the sniper's location just as several grenades exploded nearby, showering them with rock fragments and dust. "Can't move with all this gear," Thompson said, indicating his heavy sniper rifle and additional equipment. Rodriguez immediately understood the tactical reality. They needed to abandon the specialized equipment to enable rapid movement to the extraction point. The decision to leave behind thousands of dollars worth of precision equipment was painful for Thompson, who had maintained and customized his rifle over years of operations. However, survival took precedence over equipment, and both operators began bounding toward the landing zone carrying only essential gear. Santos reported that enemy forces were repositioning to engage the helicopters with rocket-propelled grenades. Multiple RPG teams moving to firing positions, she transmitted urgently. Extraction window closing rapidly. The A-10 pilot demonstrated exceptional skill by placing precision cannon fire within meters of Rodriguez and Thompson's movement route, suppressing enemy positions without endangering the friendly forces. The close coordination between air and ground elements exemplified the integration that made special operations effective. Rodriguez and Thompson reached the helicopter just as enemy rockets began impacting around the landing zone. The crew chief helped pull them aboard while the pilot increased engine power for immediate departure. Through the aircraft's windows, Rodriguez could see muzzle flashes from dozens of enemy weapons. The helicopter lifted off under fire, with door gunners returning suppressive fire toward enemy positions. Rodriguez watched the compound shrink below them as they gained altitude and distance from the threat. The mission that had begun as routine surveillance had concluded as a successful capture operation under intense combat conditions. Chief Chen conducted a quick accountability check as they flew toward their forward operating base. All personnel accounted for, 1 EPW secured, intelligence materials recovered. The successful extraction meant that Nazir would be available for interrogation, potentially providing information about other terrorist operations. Thompson examined his abandoned sniper rifle through binoculars as the compound disappeared behind mountain ridges. "That rifle helped me through a lot of missions," he said quietly. Rodriguez understood the emotional attachment operators developed to their equipment, especially items that had saved lives repeatedly. Santos monitored radio frequencies to ensure they weren't being tracked by additional enemy forces. The successful capture of a high-value target often triggered larger enemy responses, including attempts to rescue captured personnel or retaliate against coalition forces. As they approached their base, Rodriguez reflected on the day's events. An unauthorized aircraft incident that had nearly compromised their mission had ultimately created the conditions for its success. The A-10 pilot's communication failure that morning had led to the enhanced security measures that triggered higher headquarters' decision to authorize immediate action. The intelligence materials they had recovered would be analyzed by specialists who might identify patterns and connections invisible to tactical operators. Computer hard drives, documents, and communication equipment often contained information that prevented future attacks or revealed terrorist networks spanning multiple countries. Nazir sat quietly during the flight, his expression unreadable. Rodriguez wondered what information the terrorist leader might provide during interrogation and how many lives might be saved by his capture. The success of special operations was often measured not just by immediate tactical achievements, but by their long-term strategic impact. The helicopter touched down at their forward operating base as dawn broke over the Afghan mountains. Rodriguez felt the familiar exhaustion that followed high-intensity combat operations, combined with the satisfaction of mission success. Another terrorist leader had been removed from the battlefield, and valuable intelligence had been recovered for future operations. As he walked toward the debriefing area, Rodriguez realized that sometimes the most unexpected complications led to the most significant successes. The unauthorized A-10 incident that had seemed like a mission-threatening disaster that morning had ultimately enabled the capture of one of their most wanted targets.